Should be recording. No, it's recording. We should be live. Let's try this again.
I got a thing that says it is.
Yeah, we're live. Okay, let's jump in because you know it's 12:40, but that's okay. We're figuring this out. Welcome.
I feel like we say this.
Long-winded Wednesday. What? Hi.
I'm gonna try this version, so here we go. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, I am Jenny Madrano. I am the program manager at Building Bridges. This is.
Hi, I'm Maren, and I am, what am I? I'm shift coordinator at Building Bridges.
Yeah, and we are a team, a dream team, also friends. So Long-winded Wednesday, we try to combine the kind of topics we talk about at Building Bridges, diversity, equity, inclusion, with just our own take on things. And this month, I'm excited because our topic is coping skills for DEI stress. So Maren and I get to share a little bit more of kind of like our spirituality, our beliefs, our coping exercises, resources with you all. So hopefully that is something that perks your interest. Today, we're talking about energy and how we deal with, cope with, move energy while having so many conversations that are focused on DEI. So Maren, how do you feel about the word energy?
Yeah, as you said it out loud, and us like being here live on the Facebook, and you said the word energy, I was like,
is she allowed to say that?
She said the word.
The woo woo. I can't say that phrase.
Yeah.
Woo woo.
What's your relationship with that word?
Wait, you can't just pass back to the question.
Oh, I thought you were just asking how I felt about the word. You want me to expand?
Oh, can you expand?
Share more about what that looks like in my life? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like a big word, but also it's super important in my life. So I've grown into and become into the belief around that everything is energy. And ultimately, like this conversation, I see energy combined with emotional intelligence and also ultimately just coping with stress and mental health in general, that for me to essentially clear other people's energy and or be mindful of the energy and how my body is reacting, especially in certain circumstances, specifically around conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, talking about race and identity. Knowing that, like, and even Eckhart Tolle talks about like our pain body, like our bodies and energy have memory. And so for me, it's been really helpful to name that and know that just because my body is reacting or energetically I'm feeling something or experiencing something, it doesn't necessarily mean that like the world is ending. So for me, I've really had to explore what that is in terms of how that shows up in my body as a white person, in terms of white fragility, in terms of being like, I, as a white person in a white body, when I feel discomfort, it can be very dysregulating. And so I've really had to learn how to regulate my body, how to regulate my energy, and ultimately take ownership of my body, my energy, my feelings, and learn how to navigate and build tolerance around. And so I have moved into I'm a Reiki practitioner, for folks who don't know. For me, energy work is really helpful, not only to kind of clear myself of other people's energies, but also to help me heal, and ultimately help me heal from some of the bigger, greater, like systematic ideology and conditioning that I exist in.
Yeah.
That was a big answer.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I was looking for. I know you have a lot of words around it, and you have your own path and journey and way that you even practice what I call is chiropractic care for your auras, which is Reiki. And I think for me, the biggest learning I've had, especially as a DEI facilitator, is that people interact, hold, pass around, exchange energy so differently. Like that in itself is so diverse. And not everybody does it the same way.
Mm.
And I had to learn about myself that I really, really take in people's energy. And as a facilitator, that's partly my job to like hold the space and be like, okay, Sharon over here is feeling sad and Ricky is feeling mad and all these different things. How do I neutralize the situation? But I've had to learn, and you've helped me with this, how to flush out people's energies at the end of those conversations, because I tend to just carry them on, and not everybody does that, but for me, I definitely do that, and I start to feel sad, and that's not even my emotion. I'm just carrying someone else's.
Yeah, it's huge. And ultimately, I've learned too, there's tools and tricks to just potentially protect yourself or protect your energy. But like you said, I think that is, we've talked a lot this in terms of nuance of like facilitator skills and what does it mean to facilitate a group and a conversation. And I think it's a really interesting one, and one to like point out again that there's so many little things happening that you and I as facilitators are calculating or observing and noticing. And like our job has been to read between the lines, or look behind the emotion or the energy that's existing in the space, and ultimately like the tension, right? And so how do we normalize that this tension is normal as human beings navigating this world in general, but also conversations that are uncomfortable, and yeah, ultimately help people move through it.
Yeah.
Without putting our own like knowing what's internally might be happening for us to be triggered, but knowing like it's not our space or place to like then project on. It's more to like how do we use what's here in the circle.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that Building Bridges has taught me how to do, is naming those dynamics and naming the energy shifts. And it seems so simple, but I feel like not a lot of people know how to do that. I feel like a lot of people are afraid of energy, especially when you get into DEI conversations and we're talking about white supremacy or racism or sexism. Like it starts to get so tense because it's like, it's kind of going back to Eckhart Tolle, it's like people's pain bodies come up from the surface, they come out to play, and people get triggered and people get mad, and it's these suppressed feelings that are all coming to the surface. And it sometimes manifests as like the air is so stiff and it feels so tense that as facilitators, like just naming that can start to like disperse that energy, the molecules. It's cool. It's like science.
I know, it is so cool. And it's so powerful that, that being able to name it and give something space can ultimately help, dissipate it or make whatever it is not feel as big or as debilitating or as hard. And I honestly, that's one of your superpowers for sure as a facilitator, is your ability to really sense that and then ultimately know, like intuitively, definitely, and like strategically know where to move a group then. And that's, you don't necessarily get taught that, like
oh no. No, it's very much intuition based, and
yeah,
you know that most school systems, society in general, just doesn't value intuition or put it at the same level as rationale and logical thinking. I think the more you and I have leaned into intuition and sensing what energy is taking place, the less weird it feels and the more empowering it's felt for me. And I think we've been talking about this a little bit as facilitators of a group, but personally, how I cope with stress around DEI in those situations has a lot to do with my ability to, what was I saying? I guess like that same energy is coming up in me. There's my pain body is being triggered when I hear someone say something offensive or when I see someone belittle me in some kind of way as a facilitator. And I feel like I just have to remain very present to everything that's coming up, because the more that I try to suppress something or pretend like that feeling of anger is not there, the more it starts to take over. And I've seen it take over a conversation. I'm like, oh shit, I let my stuff get in the way of the group process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we've done
and
that.
if it doesn't happen in the group, it definitely like feels way overwhelming and hard afterwards.
Yeah. And I feel like it's how I love the co-facilitation method, because we can do that for each other.
Mm-hmm.
We've been able to see each other and know when things are wrong or there's more emotions rising to the surface and be like, hey, are you good? You know?
And sometimes no, we're not good. And ultimately there's not much to be done about it, but other than to, I mean, definitely in our dynamics, it's oftentimes it'll be more appropriate where you and I go and do our own separate coping skills or mechanisms. But ultimately, yeah, also be there in the moment of like something going on here. Yeah, I think if knowing that everything, for me, knowing that everything is energy, like there, and I think we hold this tension, right? Like, so we're DEI facilitators. We talk about identity, intersectionality. We talk about race, like really hard conversations, essentially, for folks, and yet we're almost like existing in this spiritual practice of, we want to awaken folks in that. We want folks to like kind of wrestle with some of these layers of energy or conditioning that they're not aware of. And ultimately, like you said, it brings something up in folks, and to ultimately normalize that whatever is coming up for you is here for you to look at, to move through, to acknowledge. And there are different avenues and there are different ways and there are different practices that folks utilize. For me, it's definitely, I either get Reiki from a Reiki practitioner, or since I am one myself, I can give myself Reiki. I also have a energy teacher that I can use kind of and get energy checks and energy readings to help me kind of flush out. Other ways, I just do my own kind of meditation. Being in nature is just really, really helpful for me. So moving my body and kind of just physically getting grounded by being outside or by moving my body is really helpful. And also learning that sometimes, especially in the moment, if I'm feeling something, I can allow myself to go and do those things and kind of process and figure out really what is it that I'm feeling, or where is this coming from, or how is this familiar? And then giving myself permission to come back to a hard conversation or come back to an article or a disagreement.
Yeah, I totally feel that too. Like if you're going to be in the realm of DEI or going after social justice, trying to be an equity ambassador, like you have to know your limits.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've had to learn that the hard way, because it's like when it's like inundation, and to be inundated with so much oppression and talking about issues, reading articles, trying to advocate, like it'll kill you. Like it's just such a heavy energy that we're talking about. People, the kind of things that cause oppression are really low vibrational things like guilt, greed, hate, evil, and so when we're talking about these issues, we're bringing up those things to the surface. So I've had to do like how you set screen limits on your phone. I feel like I've had to do that with DEI stuff. I'm just like, okay, I think this is enough for me today. Like I'm sensing what's happening in my body. For me, it manifests as shutting down or waves of depression. So I just got to give it a break, and I got to do something lighthearted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for that, and I think, well, I, as a white person, for me, I have to interact, or I have to push myself to interact with that differently. Like, I also can get overwhelmed because I've been on Facebook a lot, and or there's just news and whatever, and so I can and do need to go take care of myself, but also I have to be in reflection around when is it that I'm disengaging to a point that it's keeping me out of being anti-racist, or that it's a way for me to take my critical race lens off and disengage, because that is my ultimate privilege, is to always get to choose to opt out. So when is it that I'm doing it for my own mental health and know that I'll come back, and when is it that I'm doing it because I just don't want to deal with it?
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. That's a nuance of the white racial identity journey that I think a lot of people don't really know how to balance or navigate.
Mm-hmm.
It's one or the other, like you were saying earlier. Oh, discomfort, like red beeping, this is bad, versus like, I'm gonna be the best white ally you've ever seen, and I'm gonna go to sleep tired and mad and bleeding, and that doesn't help us either. So,
I've had to learn that. Yep.
yeah, and it's just figuring that out. But I think it also has to do with who your circles are and like who that becomes, because for a lot of my white friends, I know that they are surrounded by a lot of white people and their white families and stuff, and so the overall lived experiences, like sometimes some of those people have to go out of their way to read that article, go out of their way to empathize with that person who's getting denied service in the hospital right now. And that's like, okay, do that journey and do that work, because I don't feel like I have to go that far to see that or hear those stories. Like that's been me, that's been my family. And that's hard in itself, because I have to navigate like, okay, do I engage? I want to go fight for my sister and fight for my dad in the ways they're being oppressed right now and having to work in their offices. But I don't even have that much energy left to take care of myself. So I have to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel sharing that, saying that right now?
A little guilty, especially because this is on Facebook. Everybody and their tias are on Facebook. But it's real. Like, I can't pretend to be this superhero. I'm not. I'm just a human. And I've chosen to go into this work full time. I think for those people out there that do the same, it's like we just have to be extra careful, because I don't know, we need boundaries with this stuff, and that's hard to admit.
Yeah.
What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, for me, it just as a reminder of essentially the stark difference of our experiences of this content, of this conversation, and ultimately it is what continues to ground me in doing this work as a white person. That it's my Jenny, and it's her family, and it's people in my life, and yet, as what you were sharing too, like And yet there's so many white folks who are still so disconnected and disengaged in this. And ultimately that is part of my frustration and ultimate need to continue to do the work is I want my white cousins and friends and family and folks to be mad, to grieve, to be connected to their whole body and the weight of what oppression and racism are and exist. And especially now, as we're talking today in this moment, there's video of a Black man that's being shared and is across the country now, being talked about and asking for justice. And I don't, you know, if folks watch the video, and I don't recommend watching it necessarily, but again, it's just another, it's always been here. And yet a video like that will be dismissed or diminished or second guessed when it's literally a human being being murdered in the middle of the day on the run. Like, and that's where, so I get real angry.
Yeah. I think I was in that just yesterday. And I'm like, why don't Black Lives Matter here? Like, why is that a thing? Like, I just, not even disbelief. It's just like, what is the word? Grief. I don't even know, but I just, I also feel so mad, but it's like turning into just like extreme disappointment in humanity and just like, the fuck has to be wrong with you for you to not even think about someone just living their life running? Like, what the stark differences between how white people and Black and brown people are treated, just fucking living their lives.
Yep.
It's intense.
It is intense. And I guess that for me is why to circle back to energy and coping, ultimately, and you posted something wonderful on your Instagram last night too, like the importance of feeling our feelings. Like part of this all is also parallels with what we talk a lot about in terms of emotional intelligence. So again, what we need folks to, one, know things and have some understanding of historical context. And so we need to teach and build capacity in that realm, but also we really have to practice and build our ability to, again, know our own stuff, know our own energy and our own triggers. And ultimately also for white folks, really reconnect and align, not just, often live in our heads. And so what would it be to really be embodied and connected to our heart and our bellies when we see injustice in the world? What would it take for you to want to be in that discomfort and want to, and be willing to look at the deep, dark, gray, mucky muck of all of this? And again, ultimately, own your part in this. How do I own my part in this?
Yeah, and I think it's we're ending our time, but
yeah,
it's good. It's good for you to be feeling all those things. You should be feeling like that's your child being ripped away. You should be feeling like that's absolutely terrible and just an abomination in a way, just to be able to kill people so without thinking about it. That's where I want to see humanity heading, where it's we see each other as an extension of ourselves, and that kind of grief should be carried and shared. And that's where we're failing. We've siloed it, and white supremacy has allowed many of us to just disconnect from our feelings, disconnect our heads from our bodies, so we could continue to just act out of greed and hate and all this stuff. So now I'm getting into a little speech moment. So
it's good. Go, Jenny, go.
And name my emotions. I'm feeling passionate. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling heard. What about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling different things. Yesterday, I was very overwhelmed in all the emotions that I was feeling. Today, I feel a little more like I've actually am in an energy class, and so I was able to do some energy work this morning, and it really did help me kind of clear out and also get clarity around some information around my own self and kind of work to be in this world. And so I'm feeling very like grounded in purpose, but also, yeah, like holding anger, holding grief, because I ultimately don't ever want to let go of that, because that's what brings my humanity out and my conviction in this work.
Totally. Okay, thank you, Maren. Our time is up.
Woo! It always
Thanks
goes
for
so
tuning in.
fast.
Y'all check this out. Tune in with us again next week. We're gonna try this again live on Facebook. Yeah.
That's what people are doing.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you, Jenny.
Goodbye.